From crease to crease and corner to corner, Bettor Hockey Now is NHL fantasy and betting done better. Step into the dot for Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome in to the 10th edition. Happy 10th episode, boys, of Bettor Hockey Now here on the Bettor Sports Network. I'm Adam Bernard, and with me, as always, are my line mates, Christopher Merez and Mr. Anthony Rivera. Gentlemen, how are we doing after a one-week hiatus?
It has felt so long since the last time we talked, but it really hasn't been that long. I'm just happy that we guys are back. We got another mock draft coming, a lot of news, NHL starting to heat up. I'm ready, boys. Let's do it.
We are getting closer. We are getting closer. That's it. You know, NHL is getting closer when NFL is on TV. That's my notion. That's how I know we're getting right there. Meaningless football games mean meaningful hockey games are coming.
They were talking about this on another show on Bettor Sports Network today. For preseason football games, like, yes, for fantasy, like for depth rosters, all that stuff. Preseason hockey games, how much of those games are you watching, or is it just like, no, I can't?
I don't think I'm watching too much of the preseason. I'll check in to see, you know, for maybe some of the younger roster that are trying to make the final spots, check out for those kids to see how they're doing. But it's you know, I like when the season starts and we, you know, the real games get going.
Same. I mean, I watch because it's hockey, right? And we've been away from it for so long. So I'll tune in to see what's going on. But am I canceling plans to be in front of to watch, preseason hockey games? Not really.
Agreed. If I'm around and the game is on, it gives you a chance to watch a couple of prospects that may not be up there right away. So that's nice. When I had season tickets to the Rangers, they made you buy all the preseason games. So I used to try and get rid of them, but who wants So I would go to like one every year. I would at least go to one of the preseason games because, hey, live hockey, why not? So here's the plan for today. We got another mock draft coming your way. We're going to focus a little bit on centers this week. We're going to talk about centers we're targeting, centers we're avoiding, but kind of run through the mock draft the way we do, but we'll focus a little bit more on centers. We got some NHL news to talk about as well. We're going to talk about, have you ever left a team's game, your team's game early due to performance? Not because you got to catch a train or whatever. We'll debate if those are acceptable excuses later. But I did forget about one thing that I need to take care of. So you boys chat amongst yourselves for a minute because I do have to just fix one thing here. And I don't know if Chris will appreciate this or not, but I did say I was going to do this. So I will be right back.
Oh, boy.
I don't know. I know where he's going with this.
Yeah.
And I was hoping maybe he would just forget and it's not going to happen. And that's what I thought. That was unfortunate. I was just Googling the HR number so where I could, make an actual complete ass through this. But yes, that is unfortunate. It is great that you remembered. It is great that you remembered, but it is unfortunate.
My memory is not what it used to be, but if it's an opportunity to break balls, you better believe I'm going to remember it. So
there we go.
This t-shirt actually came to the front of the rotation in the closet like a week ago, but like, nope, it's got to stay there. Got to stay.
Not even 5 minutes in, and I'm getting hit from behind. Like it's just can't wait.
I don't even feel like you waited like after that show ended. We were talking about the price hit. I feel like right after that show ended, you had the shirt ready. You lined it up. You made it nice, ready to go for this day.
I don't iron t-shirts.
Got it dry cleaned, everything, put it aside, got all the wrinkles out. He's like, I got this one set.
This jersey has seen better days. This one is, you could kind of see like the white starting to crumble a little on that.
Kind of like Chris Kreider's career. It is better days.
Oh, I'm sorry. I look at his numbers the last couple of years. I mean, listen, I don't expect that from him again, but now's not the time to be taking pot shots at him. I would. But speaking, you mentioned getting hit from behind. Let's talk about Tom Wilson's contract extension because he's getting 7 years, $6.5 million average annual value there. And my initial reaction to that is the Capitals are on their way down. He's just going to be he's like fan favorite that they're going to keep around. He's somebody that put butts in the seats when they fall to the bottom of the Metro in the next couple of years. Still can kind of protect Ovechkin to a degree. I mean, he still plays well with him, but I mean, there's a lot of people that are gonna be like 6.5 for him, but I get it.
No, there is no player more overrated right now in terms of hockey and fantasy than Tom Wilson.
Right.
People love Tom Wilson, and I just don't know why. Because he is good at two things. One, getting suspended. You can death, taxes, and Tom Wilson hitting somebody from behind, being confused then that he shows up at the Department of Player Safety and gets hit with a minimal suspension because he's only a repeat offender now. But he is just his overall. Here's how I know there's nobody working in the analytics department for the Capitals, because the minute I saw this, I was like, man, this deal looks terrible. And not terrible in like 2-3 years. It looks terrible as of today, right? The good folks over at Cap Friendly did us a solid. They compared the contracts to it. He is compared to, so the closest it would be is to Chris Kreider. Shocking, right? And then the two other ones here are Brendan Gallagher and Milan Lucic. And that is not a category you want to be put into. Gallagher had a really team-friendly deal for the longest part. Then he signed his extension, and it's been quite literally downhill from 2020. And then Milan Lucic's deal is when he went to Edmonton. Edmonton gave him a boatload of money thinking that was going to go well. And everybody knew that deal wasn't going to work out either. So I feel like this is like, it's not if he's going to get bought out. It's just a question of when. And I mean, you're telling me there's nobody else that could have found a cheaper deal for Tom Wilson? Like, I just don't see what he brings that is so that you had to sign him to this long-term deal for this amount of money too. Shocking.
He will take up a little less than 8% of their cap with this going into next year.
That's 9% too much. 9%.
It's crazy. He's been a part of this team for a decade. And now you're going to sign him for, a little longer than what Ovechkin is going to be signed for. Once Ovechkin retires, they're talking about, maybe this guy becomes the captain, but he isn't the bill of good health either. I mean, he's had an injury history and missed, a lot of 33 games this year, 2021, 47 games, somewhere in the 60s he's played. So he doesn't really, play a lot of games when it comes to signing such an extension like that.
Barring his health, he has had one 50-point season in his career. One. I want somebody to love me as much as the Capitals love Tom Wilson. That's what I want to do. I want to talk to his agent. That's the real winner here. His agent walked into that room and said, my client needs this amount of money. And somebody went, yeah, that sounds about right. Well, here, take this blank check, put your name on it, and we're good to go.
You think it's also a part of the Caps not wanting to let go? Like, they obviously Ovechkin had to stay, he's, by far Hall of Famer, all that. And they're holding on to, now Tom Wilson, and he doesn't have nearly enough production that you would think, especially, I think he's on that top line with Ovechkin. You would think you'd get a lot more production and a lot more points scored. Like when you're talking about top lines and you have Draisaitl with, Connor McDavid. Obviously, Connor McDavid's out of this world. Draisaitl, like top 3 player, but you would think that the production would kind of somewhat be closer or near to what an Ovechkin does.
He is skating, by the way, with the greatest goal scorer of all time. So like it's just give him the puck and everything should go well. But no, Tom Wilson is just, and the same thing in fantasy. We see him go, his ADP always super early. And I'm like, unless you're in a PIMS league where he's going to get a 2, 5, and a 10 at some point for doing whatever he does, I just like he brings no value, right? Like his comparable in numbers are like at best a second line player, probably more of a third line player. And you're committing this type of money to this player who is not, like he's 30, right? And he's not going to get any younger, and he's already dealing with a mess of injuries to his knees. Those knees are not going to get any healthier. So it's just a terrible contract from the start. This is one that ends up on long-term injury reserve and probably gets bought out. And this is one of those things that nobody wins here except Tom Wilson.
I picked him up once he got healthy towards the end of the season, kind of a waiver wire pickup. And he does provide that every couple of games. He'll have spurts where he gets a couple of points, and that's, something that, helps your team out for a week. But for a long haul, for a long carry, I just don't see it like you, Chris. I don't see where it is. And I don't know, Adam, if you are in agreement with that.
Well, what if I presented it to you this way in a vacuum? Your top line right winger is making $6.5 million per year and playing alongside Ovechkin. Just taking that information in a vacuum, it's not a bad deal. Now, obviously, the player behind it and all that, but if you're somebody that builds a cap being like, okay, X amount's got to go to this line winger, trying to operate that way, it's the round peg in the round hole in that regard. That's a good value for a top line winger. Even if he doesn't perform that way, he is going to be in that role in Washington. So
when if you're looking for also specific point categories, right? And Ovechkin's going to be the scorer. So Wilson's going to be the guy that set him up, maybe get some assists in here. You look 9, 28, 20, 23, 18, 21, 12, 60. I feel like that's not enough for someone who has to set up one of the greatest goal scorers in all of hockey.
He can still get you assists. He could get you hits.
Even if you cover a turd in chocolate, it's still a turd. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to like talk ourselves into saying why Tom Wilson is a decent idea. And he's just not. I understand the physicality that he brings, but I don't even buy this protecting Ovechkin. Ovechkin is a big boy. And nobody really wants to mess with him. Like, not only can he pop 50, but he could also pop you if you get too close to him and he and you irritate him. What I've learned is don't irritate elite Russian players. They will stand up for themselves and they will, make sure that you stay away from him. Ovi's a big boy who, as one of those players, if you're looking for hits in those categories, Ovi can do that. He scores goals, takes a whole bunch of shots, and throws his weight around. So what is Tom Wilson there to do then? He's not there to protect Ovechkin because he doesn't need to. And I get maybe the right side of that offense is not, there's not much going on there. Anthony Mathis come over. That didn't work out. Anything you get from Sonny Milano is like, chocolate sauce on an ice cream. It's like great. But, Sonny Milano, a top line winger. No, they have a need there. And I think that's how Tom Wilson got this deal, right? It's because there is a need and the team said, fine, we'll do it. And like you said, he is, if you're looking for a top line winger at that price, sure, it's a bargain. But the problem is it's Tom Wilson. And that will always be the case here. He is a buyout candidate as of today. I have already checked like how much it would cost to buy out Tom Wilson. It's not great.
Yeah. Well, again, this also probably plays into Capitals owner Ted Leonsis has said that as long as I promised Ovechkin, as long as he's there, he's never going to like put the team into like full blown tank rebuild mode. Listen, signing this is a contract for the last 4 years of it, probably the last 5 years of it. You're going to be like, what the hell are we doing? And like you said, buyout candidate at that point, depending upon what it costs against the cap at that point. But this does fall in line with that as well. Like, hey, we're still giving you your guys, you're comfortable playing with them. We're trying to make you happy as long as we can while we can. So, we'll see how that goes for Washington and how many games he plays. And, maybe he can still get your assists being on that line, like Anthony pointed out. Speaking of top line wingers, you got Jake Guentzel. He's going to be reevaluated in 12 weeks, just underwent ankle surgery. He has been riding shotgun for Crosby for a few seasons now. He's also oft injured. I almost feel like he's getting that injury out of the way now, and maybe we get a nice full, 70 to 80 game season out of Jake Guentzel. So initial reaction here, he's probably going to be ready, maybe not for the start of the season, but within the first 10 games. I don't really see this affecting Pittsburgh all that much.
Well, I look at
a player who's hurt. That's.
I mean, if he's going to be back in early November, what is he going to miss? A handful of games?
I would take that discount, especially in fan. If somebody's going to like worry about, like, if I get 70 games out of Jake Guentzel, that's pretty good. In the same way that, how I draft Evgeny Malkin every year. If I'm going to get 60 games out of him, but I'm going to get a point per game production, I'll take it. And the same thing with, right, I've drafted Chris Letang a million times. If I get 60 games out of these guys and a point per game production or high production from these guys, I'll live with the, their last minute, out of the lineup because they're suffering from, like, how unlucky is Chris Letang to be like, oh, heart attack. I'm, like, it's one of those things where there's nothing you can do here. I feel like the Penguins have just been hurt a lot the last couple of years. And like you said, if Guentzel's going to get it out of the way now, it's kind of unfortunate because you'd like him to go into training camp, get up to speed. How much of that time that you're missing, is it going to affect you getting your game going and getting ready and getting, up to speed with the rest of the league? But I'll take the discount. If he falls around in a half, even 2, I'm in.
So where would you hypothetically, he's injured. you're taking him in the draft, what round do you say, you know what, I think now it's time to pick Jake up?
If I'm, let's say I have the late pick and on the third in the third round, I'm not going there because I'll get the early pick in the fourth, right? That's probably where I'm looking at him because he's still going to play with the greatest passer right now outside of the Connor McDavid, who I think is Sidney Crosby. He can backhand the puck and put it on your stick anywhere. Guentzel is counted on to shoot the puck. The rest of that team doesn't have a ton of guys who can shoot. And Jake Guentzel is the shooter on that. Like, he has had multiple games where we've seen him finish 570. I think he had 10 shots one game. Like, he is there to shoot the puck. He plays the top power play. He is the guy that they need to count on. They're not going to put it all on Brian Russ, and Malkin and the rest of the boys are just, they're getting older. So Guentzel is still going to be counted on to drive that offense. And if you're in a league where, again, shots are important, power play points are important, goals, assists, Guentzel fills all of that. So I'll take the 10 games that he's hurt, right? First of all, you should always start, if your league has IR spots out in fantasy, you should have a player on that day one. The minute you start your season, you got a player on IR. So if he's the guy I got to put on IR, perfect. Then I'll scoop somebody up for the first couple of weeks who's maybe, a rookie getting a shot. Maybe he's getting 10 games, try to prove himself, or a guy who's getting an early look somewhere in the lineup, power play. You know what I mean? Like, mix up all those things. Take a look and see if I can patch for a short term until Guentzel comes back and he's ready to run. So I would start looking around 4 because I think he is an early candidate, healthy, to go somewhere in the second round.
Now, if he's missing, some time here, 10 or more games, looking at the lines here on dailyfaceoff.com, obviously, he's a top liner. Who's moving up in that line? Riley Smith, Brian Rust, which one of these guys, Grenland, which one of these guys is moving up not only to that line, but maybe gets an opportunity to possibly move up when it comes to the draft as well?
Well, Granlund's name is starting to be bandied about as a potential buyout because, in related Pittsburgh Penguin news today, Kyle Dubas, after a not so extensive search, names himself GM. That in itself is like, all right, we need to find the guy to get a job. All right, how about me? I could do it. Why not?
That was a tough search.
Yeah, apparently there was a guy in Toronto. He wanted to come and do it. The guy said he wanted to stay in Toronto, so he is now the GM. There are rumblings that an Eric Karlsson trade could happen, and to clear the path for that, Granlund is a guy that could potentially be bought out. So when you're talking about candidates to move up, Rust and Malkin tend to have good chemistry. I don't know if we're going to break that up, but Riley Smith could be a guy that could start there, and then you move him back. Jeff Carter, now he's down on the third line. The guy can play any position in the, forward, center or wing. You could maybe pop him up there. You're not going to really move Eller. He's more of a center, but the Penguins are not short on options for a short-term Jake Guentzel placement there.
Does someone get the boost though? Like, going into anyone's fantasy draft, are you looking into maybe his like, obviously you're going to look into maybe taking, like Chris said, Guentzel, early 4th round? Are any of these guys someone that you may put a little tab on for?
Smith would be the guy. Like, he was brought in there to play in the top 6. He wasn't brought in there to do anything else. If there's anybody who can benefit, right, from seeing that consistency, like playing with Crosby is obviously going to make you better. He gave Colby Armstrong, at least an extra 5 years of hockey. So, and he carried Chris Kunitz to a whole bunch of awards. So I'm not saying Riley Smith is in that category, but if there's anybody who can benefit from playing alongside Crosby, Riley Smith has the skill. I think he just got lost a little bit in Vegas because there's so many options that they can go with. And Smith was still very, very good. So I think he comes into here good set. Again, he wasn't brought in here to just, coast around and play in the bottom 6. He was there to play in the top 6, and he's going to get his opportunity. I think the one where he would benefit the most is if he would see any type of top power play minutes. That would be ideal. That would be great.
Right now, Guentzel ADP is, in the low high 30s. We'll say 38, 39. So yeah, if it's a 12-team league, definitely that 4th round. You can maybe, and if sometimes people get really scared off by that stuff with injuries. They just see that little, red cross next to the guy's name, and he just slips and slips and slips. So, if you could get Guentzel even later than that, depending upon how much you're willing to roll the dice in terms of how long you're willing to let him go, you might get a real discount. But it's now, speaking of the Penguins, let's go back to Karlsson for a minute. If they do pull off the deal to get him, assuming that the pieces going back to San Jose are pick and prospect heavy, no real current players off the roster, where does that change your perspective on Pittsburgh in both the Metro and the East if they bring a guy like Karlsson in on that back end?
Well, they finished 1 point out of a playoff spot. And
which, by the way, they lost to Chicago and Columbus. Could not pick up what they needed out of those. Just remember that.
I got to think that, I would put them over the Islanders at that point. If they land Eric Karlsson, definitely I would put them over the Islanders. I don't know I know the Panthers finished 92 points, but I think that they're way better than they showed, and they showed that in the the postseason. I think they're better than the Sabres too, who also finished with 91 points. So I think that they could possibly be a lock for a playoff spot, but they got to stay healthy. That's the thing.
I just want to see how. I mean, Kyle Dubas is perfect for this to make the math work, right? You're talking about analytics and a guy who's going to try to fit that. He's got to fit that number under his cap hit. As of today, like, they have no cap space, assuming the LTIR is activated. They got $2.7 million. So you got to find a way to fit all that Eric Karlsson money. And I know San Jose has talked about maybe retaining some money, but I don't know how much they're going to want to retain. And not, like, sure, you have to give up prospects the other way. Pittsburgh's not going to want to give up a roster player. And if you're trying to give up one of those roster players who you don't want to buy out, i.e. Michael Granlund, like, how much is San Jose going to say, hey, we're going to take this on to facilitate this deal? Like, Eric Karlsson still won a Norris Trophy, right? And he had a very productive year. So I think he would fit perfectly with that Penguins mentality. I would cry because now my Chris Letang shares are no good, and I can just sell them off for peanuts on a dollar now. But Karlsson being part of that offense, like, Pittsburgh is a good team, but this is they're not as great defensively as they once were. I don't think they're going to get any better there. And this is a team that's probably going to play a little bit more run and go kind of hockey, where they got to keep up, they got to score, they got to keep the pace. And then Tristan Jarry's got to go out there and just kind of stand on his head a little bit and keep games close. So I would like to see the chaos happen. I would like to see how much sleep Kyle Dubas would get trying to pull this off. But from a numbers standpoint, I don't know how they do it without San Jose having to not even reasonably accommodate them, but really help them out in this situation to say, hey, we'll take on maybe players, we'll take on, some salary for the rest of whatever he needs. And you're doing a lot of that. I mean, Pittsburgh is going to give up some picks, sure. But even that in their system, like, how many elite prospects do they really have that they're willing to part with?
If I'm Mike Greer, I'd be like, hey, Pittsburgh, you remember when you beat the Sharks back in 2016? No favors now. If you look at the Penguins' blue line, though, you got Letang. They signed Ryan Graves in the offseason. Petry's currently their right defenseman on pairing 2, and Jan Rutta on pairing 3. So you put Karlsson 2, bump Petry down to 3. That might be the best right side of puck-moving defenseman that we've seen in a very long time. You got Marcus Peterson on the left side, and then either Pierre-Olivier Joseph or Jan Rutta takes that last spot next to Petry on the third pairing. If you're talking about generating offense from the back end with those 3 defensemen on the right side, and then, oh, by the way, you got Crosby and Malkin and all those guys up front, Tristan Jarry is going to get you a lot of wins. He may not help you in the goals against too much, but he's going to get you a lot of wins this year. But will be interesting to see if Pittsburgh can pull this off with Karlsson, and then just how it affects the whole Metro and the East. For me, I mean, I'd still Carolina, New Jersey as your top 2, but now you got to put the Penguins with the Rangers if they get Karlsson, I think. I mean, I think they're right there in that second tier in the Metro, and I think they're right in the middle of the pack in the East. I think a Karlsson addition to the back end absolutely gets them bumped up into, we'll say that 3, 4, 5, 6 range in the East, 7, somewhere in there.
That's fair.
All right, so NHL news in the books now. We are going to do another mock draft. I mean, we give the people what they want. It's been popular. Everybody's loving it. So we're going to do the mock draft here. Let me pull it up on the screen. There we go. All right, so we're going to be going in about a minute here, and we're talking centers today. So when Which center? Let's start with you, Chris. Before the draft gets going, who are you? Ooh, we have a potential random person in the mock draft. Another real person in here. That's exciting.
Right.
Who are you targeting center wise this year? Who are you avoiding?
Obviously, I'd like to get one of the big names, right? If I'm drafting early, I want to get my hands on a Draisaitl, a McDavid. I will throw in Austin Matthews into that conversation. I would want to get those. I would move away from players like I don't want, right? We're talking about the Capitals, the Backstroms, the Kuznetsov. I don't want to kind of touch. I'm going to be a little bit iffy on the LA side of things. I know a lot of people love Philip Deneau for what he brings. But with Pierre-Luc Dubois now in town, I don't know how all that is going to mesh. I want to focus on guys, centermen who play in the top 6, and we're going to see power play minutes, and who are going to be focused on scoring goals. That is my focus. And centermen, there are 900 million of them, right? So there's no shortage of which one you can get. So you don't have to go crazy trying to figure out which one you want. Just take a good I'm not reaching on a ton of center because I can get a ton of value later on in drafts, right? Guys who move up and down the lineup. If I'm not getting elite, I'll probably punt the whole position.
Yeah, I know the draft's coming up. We're gonna go into the draft room right now. Anyway, I know. Listen, I know the answer to who you're targeting is Jack Hughes. I mean, let's just be real. And I remember to turn the sound off this
before
time.
that. Honestly, if you're going number 1, you're taking McDavid.
Yes,
but for centers in a draft, you have to take McDavid number 1. I mean, we
No
mentioned
question.
it on the show before. There's not a sport right now where the obvious number 1 pick has just been so obvious for so long, and it's stupid to stray from it. You're cute if you don't take McDavid number 1. I've been in those drafts where I've had the number 2 spot, and I'm like, oh, McDavid, done. Like, why would you do it?
I do like, and I put it on the rundown, that I would be. I do have a affinity towards Braden Point in Tampa. I think he's a really good center. Someone that I'm staying away from, a Matthew Barzal, who has had an injury history over the last couple of years. So, and that offense in New York is not great. We saw it in the playoffs; it didn't work out so well.
All right, so McDavid obviously goes first to Anthony. And again, we see Pettersson go 3 there to Vancouver. Are you guys, Chris, are you like ready? If it's a non-banger league, are you ready to take that jump on Pettersson this year?
Oh, there's too many good options. You're telling me Elias Pettersson ahead of some of the guys who were just taking Matthews, McKinnon, Kachuk, Robertson? No, I'm not there yet. I'm not there in life.
Coming up on the clock here. It sounds like your dog is alerting you when you're on the clock, which is a nice little.
He is keeping me honest here. I'm just here for violence today. I'm gonna take Jack. I feel like I'm at that point.
I put you in a salty mood putting the Kreider shirt on.
I'm here. I'm ready. And
if I was a little lower in the draft, or if I was, let's say, 11, I think I would be more hurt. But when you're going top number 1, you got to take the best guy possible. I mean, Connor McDavid, otherworldly. You can't go wrong. Even if I have to lose Jack Hughes.
And then I'll go back to my original of taking a defenseman early.
So there you go. You get Hughes in the top defenseman on the turn. That's a fantastic 1-2. I am back on the clock. I'm a big Mikko Rantanen guy just because right wing production is so hard to find, and he gives you a ton of it. I don't know if I'm ready to look at goaltender yet, and I think it might be a stretch to this guy. You know what? I'm going to take Shesterkin. Screw it. I'm going to go goaltending there. I'm going to get one of the top guys. He's going to play the bulk of the games there. Let me shore up my goaltending there with a 2-6 pick there. Anthony almost gets Meyer back to him, but does not.
A tough start for Anthony here, man.
Yeah. I hope he's back on the clock. Now, speaking of centers that I'm looking at, when you look early in a draft, a guy I'm avoiding is Kuznetsov. His production has gone down. I know he's going to be on the line with Ovechkin this year, like he has been in the past. But, with the production decreasing over the last couple of seasons, I don't know. I just feel like we've seen the best we're going to see out of him for a team that's also kind of on the decline. So that's a guy I'm avoiding. That's more of a, we'll say, a second, third tier kind of fantasy center. I actually kind of like Pierre-Luc Dubois' fit with the Kings because he's going to be their second line center. I don't think Danault is going to really challenge him for that. Danault on a good team really is a third line center. On a mediocre team, he's a second line center. So I think with the talent he has around him now in LA, I think he's somebody that, he's not going to see a huge bump, but definitely I think he'll have better numbers than he did in Winnipeg. And I'm back on the clock here now, and I got one more guy I'm targeting, but I will save that for a second. We look at the picks that were made there. Anthony, you take Rasmus Dahlin. You short up your top defensive spot right there.
I did, and I took Karlsson too after all that talk. If he gets traded to Pittsburgh, coming off of his best career statistical season, you can't really go wrong there with that team, and I think he'll do very well there. So I had to go Karlsson.
Speaking of a center focus show, I grabbed Mika Zibanejad with my third round pick. There's a defenseman I want that I'm hoping that it gets back to me. If Chris, he says he's here for violence today, he can really, he can go for it here if he takes a guy I'm looking at on the blue line.
I'm gonna go double. I'm gonna go double goalie here. If I'm gonna keep getting Andrei Vasilevsky for free, I feel like one day you guys will catch on. So I got to go around early to secure that kind of position. And I know it's been tough here for the, a little bit for the Boston Bruins, but I think Linus Ullmark is going to be just fine.
Solid.
So he's taking the top two goalies in the Atlantic Division right there. Certainly not a bad pairing to go. And my guy is back on the clock when I get back, Moritz Seider. I think, he had a nice year last year. I think he explodes this year. Detroit, I don't know if they're a playoff team, but they're definitely a little bit of a better team this year. So I think he's going to, and he also will give you some of those banger categories as well. So get my first defenseman there. Maybe, I could have gone Tavares or Hintz, but I wanted at least one cornerstone defenseman. So we got Anthony back on the clock here. We'll see who he's going to pick. Adam Fox just went. Probably a guy I could have taken there. But again, the ESPN rankings all messed up. So sometimes you don't realize guys are gone. We also have a 30-second clock, so it's tough to really do a proper amount of research. So let's see. He heard me talking about P.L. Dubois, and he grabs him right there in L.A. with the second line center role. Should see some power. Could he see power play one time over Kopitar in the middle? Very possible. Or maybe he joins the unit and they have them both there. We'll see how that goes. By the way, Team Karras in the mock draft, whoever you are, thanks for being another human body in here.
Yeah.
So there's four of us now. So you happen to be out there, let us know let us know you're a part of the draft. All right. I am back on the clock now. What do I like?
I feel like this is an easy choice.
If Alex Ovechkin is still sitting there.
See, I know you, man.
Now, I almost took a guy instead of Ovechkin who went right after it, who's the other center I'm targeting, is Bo Horvat, and not early in the draft, more in the middle rounds. I understand he's going to a team where the three of us might have better offensive production on any other NHL team than current NHLers with the Islanders, but his production has remained consistent, has not gone down. If you combine his numbers from the Islanders and the Canucks last year, it's right on point with what he's been doing. He's still 28 years old. So he's not old yet. So I think, and he's going to be one of the main sources of whatever offense does come from the Islanders. So that's a guy, and he, if you're a face-off guy, he's one of the top ones in the league. If that's a category, so got to look at that. Now I'm going to get my second defenseman here as I'm back on the clock. Got to take Dougie Hamilton. Sorry, Ant. All the Devils are just not going your way today. And there goes Jake Guentzel we talked about earlier. Pick 6'8". Good value there.
It's okay because a good fantasy player doesn't keep their team at heart. You want to win? If those guys are around, great. If they're not, you don't just pick, Devils just to pick Devils.
Fantasy and DFS turns us all into monsters because then we start betting against our own teams, or you're rooting for your team to win, but you also don't want that player to score. So
Anthony back on the clock here. We'll see what he does. And yeah, I mean, listen, I like you want to talk. I don't care about owning Devils, Flyers, Penguins. Listen, if Crosby's the pick, he's the pick. Back when when Tom Brady is with the Patriots, as much as a Jets fan, if I am, if the value makes sense to take Brady or I got to take Brady, then I'll deal with him embarrassing my team twice a year.
It's the same how I feel about Toronto Maple Leafs skaters. I want the Habs to win 6-5 and Willie Nylander to have 5 goals for Toronto. That's in a perfect world. That's how everything goes.
That's a great night right there.
To win.
So let's see. Anthony shores up his back end. He goes Victor Hedman and then Philip Gustafson on the turn from Minnesota. You took Gustafson, I think, in one of our previous mock drafts.
I feel like I've taken him in every mock draft so far.
Now, I've probably waited a little too long for goalie. We'll see how that works out from here when we get back.
I think there's still good goalies out there.
There are.
Samsonov is going to be, out. I don't know how long, but you got Swayman.
Yeah.
I don't know
how much.
Have
half the share. I don't want the other half of the share.
Yeah.
Unless it's like I get value on it and then fine, that's my goalie 3 or something like that. It's a little bit of a reach, but we talked about this guy's going to get a ton in a league where wins have value. Tristan Jarry is a good way to go. I don't want to deal with Samsonov. Let somebody else deal with that because his other numbers aren't great. Chris back on the clock here with the turn.
Night by the computer. I love it.
Owen Tippett?
No, Kevin Fiala.
I was looking at him at that
LA offense has got enough to go around. I'll make it simple. We're talking about centermen. Somebody has to play center in Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele may either stay there or find his way out, but either way, somebody's going to have to do something there. And then Old Faithful. I mean, if he's alive, Chris Letang is still there. So
we knew that was coming.
It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
In every draft, one of us will grab him for sure. All right, so I'm back on the clock here. I'm not ready to really pull the trigger on a defenseman. Listen, Artemi Panarin, I know I'm starting to build a Ranger-heavy team here, but Panarin's still out there in the 8th round. I got to snag that.
Hey, man, he gives you the points in the regular season, and that's what matters the most.
Was that a slight dig about he gives you the points in the regular season?
It's true, though. It is.
I know it's true.
You want to win fantasy, you're going to take him.
Listen, I had that coming because I took the shot at Chris with the shirt, and I just shooting shots at me. So
we're just paying tribute to Tom Wilson today, right? Just taking shots. Nobody see it coming.
I will take my first devil. I'm going to go Tyler Toffoli in this round.
That's a really good pick. Really strong.
Shore up even more defense. I love my guy Quinn Hughes. I can't have Jack. I'll take Quinn.
Get the brother. It's not a bad way to go.
Mm-mm.
Now, I am back on the clock. I know you can see everything I'm looking at. I gotta go Johnny Gaudreau here. Let's start filling out my forwards a little bit. I know my D is weak, but I think I can fill it up in the back end. I'm confident in my abilities to find value late on the blue line to do this.
Is it interesting that how high kind of Luke Hughes is? He only played one regular season game and a couple of postseason games, and he is, higher than I would thought he would be.
I mean, listen, sometimes, you want to be, people want to be the guy or the person that I was in on this player before everybody else. So there might be a little bit of inflated hype value there, but on a team like the Devils, I mean, if somebody's going to generate, if you're going to have a young defenseman generate offense, it's going to be a team like the Devils and a player like Luke Hughes.
I really would love if ESPN did, right wing, center, left wing.
They do. It's just with the mock draft selections, it's kind of limited to this. I'm hoping as we get closer to the season here, now that we're in August, our options will change where we can actually do more specific traditional mock drafts versus forwards, defensemen, and have more than 30 seconds. So I take Thomas Chabot there. I felt like it was time for me to get another defenseman. In the 10th round, if Ottawa takes that step this year that people are thinking they are, his production should go up. Let's see here. We're looking. Anthony goes Joe Pavelski, Andre Kopitar. That is a strong 1-2 punch on the turn.
If you're going to get that production from guys that have given it all their career, I got to, continue with that trend.
I'm going to grab Matthew Barzal here. If Horvat's going to be the top line center, Barzal should get some production. I mean, those are going to be the only two guys in the Islanders who consistently perform on the offensive side of things. So I'll get that if I didn't get Horvat. Chris on the turn here. Let's see what he does. I feel like he was probably considering line A, and then that got snapped, but maybe not.
Not exactly. I'm going to go with a defenseman here. I've said nice things about him. It's unfortunate that a lot of people listen to us because I feel like I'm not going to get the value I deserve on Mike Matheson as we get closer to the season. Because Montreal doesn't have really a ton of puck moving defensemen like Matheson. And now that he has signed an NHL contract, he is going from one college rink to another college rink. I'm hoping Logan Cooley can complement my Clayton Keller and just, even if they lose a ton of games, as long as those two have fun racking up points, I'll be happy with that.
I don't know what I'm going to do here. I mean, I could really go a lot of directions. You know what? I want to get my fourth. If we're talking about all the, like if Pittsburgh gets Karlsson and everybody playing with everybody, Raquel is going to get production just by association in that top six. So I'll take him there. Probably a little early, but again, 30-second clock, you get rushed. I could have taken Shea Theodore there, but again, I'm going to see if I can find value on the blue line later on.
I know he isn't he doesn't come out on the headlines great, but I always get sucked in with Jacob Vrana with the talent that he has. I feel like I got to take the flyer on him always.
Listen, if he could finally be consistent in St. Louis, they could certainly use that, and he's going to get opportunities there to put it together. So he's definitely going to have volume. He's going to have minutes on the ice. So not a bad pick at all. There goes Philip Forsberg, Tyson Barrie, a couple of Predators go there with the computer. Here we go through the auto. I'm back on the clock. Good, because the guy I wanted is still here. I'm going to take a blue as well. Robert Thomas, 47 assists last season, is a producer for the Blues, and also a very strong presence on the power play. So take my another forward there. With Chris back on the clock here.
I'm going to add another forward, fresh off his nice signing. The Anaheim Ducks had a Snickers bar, and they realized their qualifying offer for arbitration was not very good. So Troy Terry got paid as he should have. And I'm gonna go with a goalie here. And again, he is sticking around as long as he is healthy, as long as he is breathing. He's going to start as a third option. Freddie Anderson is just fine.
Yep.
All right, coming up on me here. Oh, Morgan Riley would have been nice to grab at this point in the draft. Not going to happen. I'm going to take Brent Burns here. You talked about the Hurricanes. He's going to get his production there. He still plays on the power play. Let's see here. Team Karras on the clock. He's going to grab Jake Batherson. I think that's a nice pick there in the 14th round. He's certainly a guy that could blow up this year. Anthony back on the clock here. I know who I want if he gets back. We'll see. No, because Anthony took him. Just today.
Oh, too soon.
Got it. At least shore up that back end right there. And let me see. I'm going to take a chance on Mackenzie Weegar.
There you go. A couple of defensemen go there. McNabb right after him. There goes Jake McCabe. There goes Philip Deneau, who we talked about earlier, who still has value in in leagues that have a lot of categories. He's still going to give you value there in those non-traditional categories, but the opportunities may not be there.
Yeah, you guys soured me on him a little bit. I was a big Deneau fan.
I am, but he's going to move down this year. So
I get it too.
His stock's on the decline. Oh, geez. I'm going to take Markstrom on the bounce back as my goalie 3. Looked at potentially Aiden Hill, but I have a feeling Vegas is going to be more of a share, where Calgary, he might get more of the workload.
Oh, I'm going to hate myself, but it is what it is.
You're taking who I think you're going to take.
I know. We've been through a lot, I feel like, in this episode, and I feel like it's coming full circle for no reason. But I mean, we can't deny that he puts the puck in the net, which is unfortunate.
Wow.
But he does. And again, the next one here, we're just gonna go down the rabbit hole here and hope good things happen. Haven't heard anything bad. Sometimes no news is good news, but assuming his career in the NHL continues, Valeri Nichushkin's got a home somewhere. So I'm just hoping it's on the top line in Colorado.
So with my pick that's coming up on the clock now, absolutely would have taken Kreider here if you did not take him, and I knew he was gone the second you got like 3 words into your last statement.
Yeah.
Speaking of centers, we're focusing on that today. Well, let me make my pick first, but Logan Couture is a guy I want to get into in a second. Marchessault just went. I mean, I got to take Mark Stone here.
Absolutely.
Hopefully he plays. But I mean, how many games is he going to play is the story.
He will give you 40 games. Those will be the 40 best games he'll give you.
That's true. It's true.
Can't say no.
So look, I'm looking at some blue line options here while Anthony's on the clock. Logan Couture, and I said this on a previous episode, like there's not going to be much offense in San Jose. He's the one guy that consistently produces. I know there are other aspects of his game that the fan base isn't thrilled about, but he's still a consistent producer, still wins faceoffs, still gets assists, still puts the puck in the net. So, when you're in the 16th round, you could do a lot worse than that. So good value pick there, and a guy I would look at trying to target in those mid to late teen rounds, or even the early teens, depending upon your draft, 12 team, 10 team, that stuff. So let's see here. Anthony goes Brock Besser and Brad Marchand, another good 1-2 turn punch there. Can Besser, his best days behind him, or do we think we might get a little bit more out of him before his days are done? I mean, I know he's not old, but I feel like he just hasn't really been consistent.
I think he's got to play on those in one of those top two lines. He is a power forward. He drives the net. He goes to the dirty areas. He can shoot the puck. He can play the power play. But if you're rotating him around the entire lineup and possibly making him a healthy scratch, and then he plays because somebody else is hurt, I know what you're trying to get out of him, but you got to put him in a spot to succeed. And if you think Elias Pettersson is going to absolutely rock, then I guess that's the guy who's going with him. I don't know how this guy keeps falling here. It's just one of those things. I think I've had him on every team. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
He gets forgotten about.
He gets forgotten, which is wild because there's good players in Winnipeg, and he is one of them. And I'm going to take another risk here on defense, hoping this is the breakout year for him. Maybe if it's next year, then I'm just 1 year ahead for him. But Owen Powers is a good pick here, and that's how I feel about it.
A defenseman in what is this, year 2 or year 3 for Owen Powers?
This is year 2.
So, the defensemen tend to take a little bit, not necessarily a jump, but they definitely find their game a little bit better in that second season. So, solid move there. What am I doing here? You know what? I'm going to grab Adam Fantilli. I'll stack him and Gaudreau and hopefully double up my points that way. Let's see. We're getting here in the home stretch here. We got 4 rounds to go, and then we'll do a quick little recap and talk about leaving games early, and we'll call it a day here for episode 10 of Bettor Hockey Now, as Anthony is making his picks for round 19. 18 and 19, I should say. So he goes and gets the Wild's goalie tandem, gets Fleury, gets Gustafsson, and then he also gets Edmonton. So listen, it looks like you got Edmonton and Minnesota's goal. So what I like about those two tandems is Edmonton's going to get a lot of wins, and Minnesota's going to get you a lot of the low goals against, the save percentage, that kind of stuff. So you get a little bit of a balance there.
Yeah, especially
same tandem last time too.
I had the Minnesota tandem with Carolina.
There you go.
This time I decided to go with Edmonton because I think Skinner was the best out of the rest of the goalies at that time. So I thought that was I like to have the goalie tandems. They do bring you a lot of points in specific leagues. So being able to just swap them in and out, because they're going to have days off and the other one's going to play, I think it's the best way to go.
And here's the other thing about goalie tandems. Even if one of them gets hurt, you don't have to sweat the waiver wire or your fab budget or any of that stuff. You can make the decision of, okay, is it worth picking up the guy they're calling up, or can I just ride this out? And it gives you that peace of mind of not having to worry about that or having to pick up some scrub team starting goaltender who's going to kill your categories. That's why I am a big fan of the tandems here. And I should probably grab one more goalie. Let's see who's left. All right. And I said I don't mind a goalie split as my number 3, Aiden Hill here. I'll take another guy that'll get me some wins and hopefully balance out. Goes with Shesterkin, goes with Jarry, and Markstrom. So I got a nice four goalie setup there. Ant's back on the clock, making some of his last picks. 2 rounds to go here. I still need to grab probably at least one more defenseman. So we'll see what happens here. Ant stays on the Minnesota Wild train, grabs Ryan Hartman. and take Shane Wright out of Seattle, which I like. I love that pick in round 21. That could really pay big dividends for you.
Let me ask you guys a question. Obviously, it's not easy to do when it comes to stacking, especially in my position where when you take Connor McDavid, you know for sure you are not getting. Now his name is eluding me.
Leon Draisaitl.
Leon Draisaitl. Yeah, brain fart. You're not going to get that kind of stack. Is there any stacks you guys are looking at all?
I mean, if you look at the Rangers, who's going to be, Mika Kreider is a good one. That's one right off the top of my head. If I'm, looking at the Devils, Hughes, Meyer, that's another one that I would look at for sure. I don't know if he's playing on that. He may not play on that line, but I would roll the dice that he will at some point. What about you, Chris?
Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley. Again, if they're going to college party somewhere, got to do it. Got to do it there. And then, I mean, there's a lot of other. I guess for me, I've done a couple of them, right? Scheifele with right Ehlers. I'm trying to look for guys who have the offense. I'm going to take a risk here on a goalie. I'm going to go with whoever is starting for Buffalo is not going to matter because Levi will take over at some point.
He's gonna in a dynasty league draft this year. He's a guy you want to snag for sure. I'm on the pit clock for my last pick here. I'm gonna go a little deep here. JJ Moser had put some solid production for Arizona last year, and I think this year a full season of him because he wasn't even there at the beginning. I think he'll somebody from that back end has to produce, and he'll be the guy. I think so. My roster's full. Anthony's about to make his last pick, and then we'll do a quick recap here and see what we like. Thank you, Mr. Team Karras, for being a live participant in this. Maybe we'll even look at your team before we wrap up and see how you did. But always love having a actual human participant along with the three of us, and that should get better here as things go on. So let's take a look at some teams here. I'm going to start with Mr. Rivera here. So you double dip there with the Edmonton Oilers. It's a McDavid, Nugent, Hopkins stack. Like you said, you can't stack Draisaitl. I mean, a traditional stack is the same line, but having the top two.
How dare you stack 250 points like that?
God. Yeah, you moron. And then you go and get Dubois, and you get your guy Toffoli, Pavelski. I mean, when you look at your top, well, say 5 forwards, and I'll even throw Kopitar in there. That's a strong cornerstone there of forwards.
Yeah, and I think the conversations that we've been having, not only today, but over the past couple of weeks, you look at me taking Eric Karlsson, possibility of him being in Pittsburgh, big move for him. Pierre-Luc Dubois, he kind of fell to me in that round. I had to take him. And like I said, a big thing for me that I have to check off is I need goalie tandems in my drafts. That's one of the most important things because the goalies can get you sometimes even more points. So I needed that goalie tandem together. Thankfully, I got 2. If I get 1, I'm very happy. The fact that I got 2, even happier.
I think your defense is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of high upside there with a lot of guys who can contribute offensively. I mean, you look at Quinn Hughes, obviously he can rack up points. I mean, Hedman, if he can get back to what he was doing, he's a good pick. Like you said, Karlsson can go out there and dominate. There's a Dahlin as well. There's a lot of upside there offensively from the blue line. So if there's like if the guys, if the Besters of the world or the others, the Marchands slow down a little bit, you'll still get that production from the blue line, which I think is hard to find in a lot of leagues, and to get a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's that.
And I feel like I've taken, obviously with Keandre Miller, he's got, some upside from last season. Mackenzie Weegar, he had his on and off, but most important, you always know that you're not probably going to finish the season with this entire roster intact, whether injuries, tough play from certain players. You always got to be focused, especially on the waiver wire every week, making sure that you're watching and seeing some of these players maybe jump out at you and make sure you're on top of that, because that's a real big difference maker. I know it was a difference maker for me throughout the postseason, throughout the playoffs, and it helped me win a championship. So make sure that you're paying close attention to the waiver wire.
Absolutely. And I apologize there. I thought I was going to have to stop to go sign for a package, but they just left it on the doorstep. So we're all good. The other thing too is know your format in terms of like roster spots, because ESPN locks you out at that fourth goalie. So in a format where you're capped at 4, that even lends itself more to getting the tandems, because you're going to be allowed 4 roster spots and that's it. You may as well just have both. Let's take a look at Chris's team here. We got Jack Hughes right off the start. Clayton Keller there and Caulfield. So you got you 2 guys you really love and you like to watch. Shifley, probably the straw that stirs the drink in Winnipeg. Balkin, certainly not bad there as your 5th forward. Logan Cooley, we talked about. You got your top line stack there. Again, you get Troy Terry, Chris Kreider, and you throw a long shot out there in the Nichushkin. But even if he doesn't work out, this is a strong top 7.
I like to target guys who I know people know this by now. Like, I like to target guys who score goals. That is the goal of fantasy hockey, especially in whatever category leagues, right? You got to know your categories, but ESPN gives you, right, and especially in this one that we've done, they give you average time on ice. You look at guys who are going to play, upwards of 20 minutes a night. You look at guys as well, they credit you for power play points. So guys who are going to play on the power play and are going to collect those points. To me, I'm targeting guys who shoot the puck, because if you shoot the puck, you will score goals by default. That's just how it is. And the more you target guys who can fiddle the puck towards the net. If I lose, I know ESPN does this, unfortunately. They target the plus minus, the stat that we don't care about, the stat that we don't want to care about. It is, it is the Tom Wilson of stats. It is useless. There's no reason to have it around. The world's probably better off without it. But I don't care for certain categories like that. I'm happy this one doesn't do hits and block shots. Not something that I worry about too much here. But when I'm building my team, same thing defensively. I'm looking at guys who are out there to fire the puck towards goal. Guys like Cale Makar, they do what they need to do. Chris Letang, if he's healthy, is good. And then Dobson and Mike Matheson, guys who can facilitate the puck. They can also block shots on leagues where you need a couple of those. Those 2 can do it. Dobson's the quarterback on the top power play unit, whatever it looks like with the Islanders. And Montreal's 30th ranked power play, which is probably where it's going to finish again. Mike Matheson will be there because he is the only one who can facilitate the puck at a high enough level. So it's a question of staying healthy, right? I need guys who are going to be healthy, and in leagues, especially like you were talking about, Anthony, about the waiver wire. If your league allows you to take a player and stash him right away on IR without having to go through your roster, then he is going straight there. You got to be packing those IR spots. The same thing with the NA spots, right? Just sometimes if you're holding on to, let's say, a rookie that may be the first call up, those need to be packed and they need to be held on as long as possible, because you want to be, right, the same way that you play chess. You want to be one step ahead of your opponent. And if you are not scouring the waiver wire for what is there, I mean, you look at every team that wins championships, some guys coming off the waiver wire just absolutely shredding the league, right? So you want to be part of that. You want to make sure that you're on it. Don't wait too long. I know some guys who have kids, they're up at 3 a.m. because the baby's got to eat, and they're putting in their waiver claims. And it's unfortunate because I'm not awake.
That stuff.
It's terrible because I'm not awake. And I feel like I feel bad because the guys out on the West Coast, like, it's midnight. You guys still up. Like, you still got an hour left and whatever's going on in your day, and you're submitting claims and whatnot. And I'm at least 5 hours deep into my sleep. So
I am awake past midnight, ready for. That's the first thing I do before I go to bed is check the waiver wire and make sure I can put a claim in for whoever I want and have that person ready. Last draft I went Hughes, I think at number 6 or number 7. He fell to you at number 12, which I think is a great value, a steal. If he can continue on the path that he started really last season, because the first couple seasons were a little rough. Last season was kind of like the coming out party for Jack Hughes. So that right there, I think, is a steal. And you got 3 of the top goalies. I talk about goalie stacking, which is what I like to do. But, when you look at having Ullmark, Anderson, and Vasilevsky, that's a nice way to go in terms of getting goalies for sure.
And it gives you the luxury to take a late round flyer on a guy like Levi, because you're so strong up there that it's not going to hurt you.
Again, I don't know what Vasilevsky has done to whoever puts together the projections for ESPN, but he's clearly not made him happy. Like, there was a stat like goals saved above expected. Vasilevsky has been super good in the last 2 playoff rounds. He is elite. He is an elite goalie. So I don't know how he's getting to 50th overall here. Again, if you're in a 12-team league, that's pushing round 5, which is where most people are starting to look at goalies anyways. but I'll gladly take one round ahead and take on Vasilevsky, who could nobody. He's going to get the bulk of the starts. Sometimes he goes through a phase where he can't stop the puck, but I mean, all goalies do. And for the most part, he is elite at stopping the puck. He makes his team better. He is not one of those goalies who is just going to pick up wins and losses, but looking at his outline stats, the Martin Jones of the world, picks up 35 wins, but also has got a 3.49 goals against average and a sub 900 save percentage. So I'll take that. Freddie Anderson is always his health, right? He needs to stay healthy. His knees need to stay good. As long as he's healthy, Carolina is a really good hockey team. They also now employ Dmitry Orlov, who apparently is the new Bobby Orr. So he's going to make that team a whole lot better as well. So there's a lot that I like there taking goalies. I feel like you should have at least 3. And if you get a 4th, even better, especially if you're stacking it. You want to be able to hold on to goalies because you're not going to be able to find good ones during the year, especially once you get into those 12 and 14 team leagues. There is nothing on the waiver wire. There's nothing there. And if there is, it's probably not good, and you're patching it and you're not going to survive. So there's, in most category leagues, you got 12 categories, 6 offense, 6 goalie. So I need to make sure my goaltending is set so I don't have to worry about that. I'll worry about other things, right? But I won't worry about my goaltending.
And the fact that he just fell to you, again, just like Hughes did, he falls to you round 3, 12th pick.
Hughes was a gift too. Yeah. And I mean, he's got 2 new toys in Timo Meier and Tyler Toffoli to start the year. Like an abundance of riches in, New Jersey. And, he had himself just a banger of a year. He came out. I would say that is fair. He totaled 99 points, and now he gets a full year of Timo Meier, who's going to settle in. It's going to be just fine. And he's going to get a Tyler Toffoli, who played really, really well on a really bad hockey team coached by a Sutter. So there's just a ton of upside in New Jersey, and I want pieces of that. So getting Jack is a wonderful Christmas present here in August.
So you're also going to help me out because I got Toffoli.
Yeah. Hey, look, as long as Toffoli gets the assists and then Hughes gets all the goals and all the shot share, that's fine. We could all eat, but I get the bigger part of the pie.
And just going back to the not being like a homer with your team. I'm a Ranger fan. I want, like Chris said, I want as many shares in the Devils as I can this year on their top.
It's unfortunate, but that's where we are.
That's what. Hey, listen,
there's always one team every year.
Always one. Now we'll look at my team quick and Mr. Karras' team quick before we wrap it up here on another edition of Bettor Hockey Now. I love my forward group here: Rantanen, Zibanejad, Ovechkin, Panarin, Gaudreau. Top 5 right there, very strong. Barzal, I don't mind as my 6th forward. Raquel, I probably reached on. That was a little bit of a panic pick. I didn't love what it was available there, so I probably reached there. But I do like Thomas and Stone there. Look at the blue line. Probably should have grabbed Fox over Seider. Didn't realize he was still there at that point. Again, thank you, 30-second clock. So as you got Seider, Hamilton, Shabbat, Burns, Fowler. I think it's a strong blue line. I don't think it's anything, I don't think it's going to – I'm not going to lose any weeks with that blue line. And then, Fantilli, we'll see how he does in his rookie season. Love my top 2 goaltending options. And, if Markstrom can, after what happened last year in Calgary, I think he's a good, strong bounce back candidate. Aiden Hill, we saw what he did on the route to the Cup. I'm a big Nick Schmaltz guy. I think he gives you production on a team that doesn't really offer it that much and gets overlooked. So that's a guy you can maybe get in some late value that falls to you. We talked about that with J.J. Moser. Lucas Raymond last year was very frustrating because he was that guy that when he would start to produce and you go and you put him in the lineup, he goes cold and then you get rid of him. And so I think this year he puts it together, and certainly as a late round pick there, I'm certainly fine with grabbing him.
Schmaltz is a guy that I see how far I can push him off to and see how far he can fall before I grab him. But good pick. He was a late pick in the season for me. Late waiver wire pick for me, and lining him up there, I think that's a good move.
And in leagues, he's got right wing eligibility, even more so for sure. So let's look at Team Karras here, the one team we weren't really paying attention to. So let's take it. So listen, Draisaitl Marner is a 1-2 punch. Certainly nothing wrong with that. He's got Kucherov, Aho, Cousins. I mean, the forward group gets a little bit weak here. Tomas Hertl still produces. Batherson, he got a little value there late, but this middle group of forwards I don't really love in this Cousins, Hyman, Trocheck area.
It's good, but it's going to lack some depth. I think his first picks are pretty good. Those are high-end players who can score, and then it kind of dips off a little bit there. So, but if he can get if he can get just average production from those guys, nothing below, then he should be fine. I think his defense is where the problem is going to be, right? Nothing wrong with Pionk and Devontae's and McNabb and Hannafin, but those are not elite guys. Those are guys who you can plug into your lineup and will give you what I know a lot of people like to just salivate at Charlie McAvoy. I'm just not one of those guys. I don't. I think he's good, but in terms of fantasy, I just don't think he is elite. I don't think he's elite.
On a 5 defenseman team, I almost think he's more of a defensive 3 than a defensive 2, McAvoy. Fox is your defenseman 1, sure. That's
yes.
Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, and McAvoy as a defensive 2, okay, but I'd rather have him as a strong 3 than a weak 2. Look at the goaltending, not great. Bobrovsky, Kemper didn't really do much there.
There was nothing left after we took all our goalies, so
that's probably what happened. But yeah, the rest of the roster, nothing really to write home about. But yeah, that was the 3rd edition of a Bettor Hockey Now mock draft here on the Bettor Sports Network. Going to be doing those a lot here as we lead up to the season here in the dog days of summer. But before we get out of here, we always like to talk one topic to wrap the show that's not necessarily specific to nuts and bolts hockey, fantasy, or betting. But leaving a game early, acceptable or not due to your team's performance? Now, we were talking off air before we started recording this, like, you know, in New York, I know a lot of people that go to Ranger games, they got an LIRR train or a Metro North train to catch. And if they don't catch that one at 9:33, they might be waiting till like 12:45 for the next one. So that is an acceptable excuse to catch a train. I know you're shaking your head no, Chris. When you live in a city, you got to make that train. Got to make the train.
I'm just saying, I live in a big city as well. And
I know, but it's not like a New York subway train.
Master, like subway ones, by the way, the absolute most terrifying thing in the world. I've never seen a line change midway from just a regular to an express. It got me to where I needed to be. I was going to watch the Mets play, and then at some point, the guy just said, "This is now an express," and I was like, "I have no idea what this means." The guy at the W Hotel downtown Manhattan, shout out to him. He wrote it down on a napkin. He told me where to go. I was terrified. I didn't die.
See, when people would ask me for directions on the subway, it was all how you asked me. If you were to ask me as a normal human being looking for a favor, I'd help you out. But if you asked me in a manner where it was almost like you were expecting me to tell you where to go, like I was your personal tour guide, then I would tell you to get on the train the wrong way. Sorry. I'm not as much of a New Yorker in that regard anymore. Moving to Northern California.
Do not ask Adam for directions on the
No, I have a great sense of direction. I'm the guy that listen. I get you wherever you got to go in New York, but like there were people that would be like, they would just not even say excuse me, not even please, just be like, they'd walk right up to you. How do I get to here? I'm sorry. Can you know?
That's true.
I'm not like one of those.
Call. But so back to the whole leaving a game early. I only left a range, and whether if it's an outdoor game, we're going to open it up to all sports. I've left a game early on 2 occasions. There was a Jets-Browns game in December at the old Giants Stadium, and it was sleeting, freezing rain, and my ride wanted to leave, and I really did not want to deal with mass transportation from the Meadowlands in New Jersey all the way to Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. So even though I didn't want to leave, and even though it was pretty obvious the Jets were probably not coming back, I had to leave that one. And there was a Ranger Flyers game that I was at once. And we've all seen a bunch of hockey games. And sometimes you just watch hockey games and you know, like, all right, they don't got it tonight. It's not happening. They're not coming back. They did not show up. And that's what happened. And then when the Flyers scored like the 6th goal, like early in the 3rd period, it was literally the first time I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. I'm going to get home a little bit earlier tonight. They're not going to play. I'm not going to wait. That was it. So acceptable, unacceptable.
I feel like hockey sets it up for us for the fact that the sport is timed, right? Even if you go into overtime, it's a short overtime now, and you get the shootout. I feel like they set it up perfectly for us to, stay for an entire game. I do understand if you're down by 6 goals or 7 goals with like 5 to play, you could start walking out the door at that point. I feel like. I usually stay for the games for hockey. I even stay for baseball games. I told you guys off the air, like the Mets are getting destroyed. I'm kind of still there. Maybe this week, last week, I was a little frustrated, started walking out the door. And because I did that, they started scoring runs and I had to start watching from the side. I didn't exactly leave the full stadium. My one foot was out. I was still watching from the other side, but
I think if you still have a view of the stadium, of the playing surface, even if it's limited within a tunnel or a runway, you still count as being there.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. 0.
There you go. Listen, you're a better man than me.
Unacceptable. Not even unacceptable. The guys in the suits, I get it. They got the tickets for free. They could care less. They show up. The best are like, right? Because we obviously live in these cities where tickets are expensive, right? Yes. To get your hands on. I've been to watch hockey in Columbus, the hotel, the travel, everything. It's still cheaper than 2 tickets to watch the Habs at the Bell Center. But I mean, my favorite is the guys in suits sitting at the platinum seats. They showed up midway through the first period. They're hitting the concessions every break, right? So they're obviously missing 4 to 5 minutes coming back. And then midway through the third, they're like, I'm leaving. And I'm like, why? Like, I get it. Tickets are free. Fine. But still, it's still unacceptable. It's still unacceptable. If I went with somebody and they're like, hey, we're leaving early, I'm like, no, you go warm up the car. I'll meet you there. And that's it. I mean, again, tickets are expensive. I'm going to bleed it out. That's it. Right. Like, sugar, we're going down swinging at this point. It's bad. It's not good. I get it. But we're going out there. I haven't even left a baseball game early. That's it. I'm one of those people who don't care. The baseball game's 3 hours. I'm just there. I'm hanging out, having a good time. Got my time set out. I get it. Maybe if you have kids, fine. Kids' attention span. Maybe he doesn't want to, care very much for it, but I don't have kids. So I go. We're going to have a good time. I'm there early. I want to watch warm up. I want to see the meaningless stats that they put up. I want to see guys shooting pucks. That's it. I stayed at the end for the 3 stars, and then I'm chucking out. There's lots of exits to arenas too. Like I don't know. A lot of people sometimes they get confused. Like they're like, oh, I can't make it out. You can make it. I can make it home. I live off island. I can make it there home in 45 minutes, even if I leave after the 3rd star. There's lots of ways to get out, so I'm not worried about it. So unacceptable is the answer. Not even okay.
So the 2 times I said were the only 2 times. So I will give myself a pass for the one of them was a ride, and like I said, it would have taken me like 3-4 hours to get home via mass transportation from the old Giant Stadium to my apartment. So like I had no choice. I have sat in games where do you remember the ESPN Joe Namath I Want to Kiss You Susie Colbert game back in the day?
Oh yes.
So Chris, there was a ESPN sideline reporter, Susie Colbert. It was a Saturday night Jets-Patriots game. It was freezing. And Joe Namath at the time was still very much somebody who enjoyed a beverage, or a few of them. Was obviously pissed drunk, probably should not have been put on the air. Susie Colbert's trying to do like a typical sideline interview with a former legend. And at one point he just goes, I just want to kiss you, like right on a live interview. Not ideal. But that was the game I was at. And at one point it was so cold that my lower half of my legs from my knees down, I stood up to go to the bathroom and I almost fell because I had no feeling from my knees down. So I've done my time in games like that. So I'm not a
football. I feel is different. Football is played, it's freezing most of the year when if your team's outside, especially like, the Jets and Giants are. If you're not in the South, if you're not in the West Coast, you're in this East Coast area, you're going to be freezing playing football. If it was a winter classic game and it was the only classic game I could go to, definitely not leaving that game. I hope that stadium series, when that comes to the Meadowlands, I went
to the winter classic one in Boston. It was cold. I bought a hot chocolate, overpriced. I've never spent so much for parking, hot chocolate. But again, it is just unacceptable. It is unacceptable. It's not even like acceptable or like kind of like, it's not like a Tom Wilson suspension where it's a slap on the wrist. It's not like that. We're talking like Rafi Torres kind of like unacceptable at this point.
We're talking about suspensions are coming.
Yeah. Like you're like, it's not okay. You know what I mean? Like we're sitting down with everybody. Like you're a repeat offender, especially if you're a repeat offender, even if you have season tickets. I get it. You've been there a lot. You go to maybe 41 games out of the year and stuff. You're like, maybe I'll just sneak out a little bit early. Habs are getting trashed by whatever good team is in town. It's still unacceptable.
And to your point earlier about traveling to another location and it being cheaper, when I used to do my Ranger road trips, it was amazing the difference of the price in a game in Arizona versus Vegas, Edmonton versus Vancouver.
You're sitting by the ice, right? You're sitting by the glass in Arizona, whereas you'd be, all the way at the top at a Rangers game.
So yeah, like Arizona, I was like a few rows off the glass. Vancouver, I was a few rows off the glass because they were affordable. But Edmonton, no way. Vegas, no way. LA, no way. Anaheim, yeah. Anaheim, we had really good seats. But
Columbus, same thing. I sat like 3 rows from the ice. It was great. Columbus as a city, not, again, my apologies to the good people of Columbus, just not it. But
it's a dead
great
city.
tickets. Great tickets.
Just because we make crap on a city, we're not crapping on its inhabitants. We're just crapping on,
the
like
prices.
Is another
it's
one
the
I love
prices.
to crap on.
It's all the prices.
It's fine. Again, good. The same thing for the people of Buffalo. I'm sorry, city, not it, but quite affordable if you want to go watch. If you want to go watch Owen Powers and Darlene and all these guys, you can do it.
Now,
on Friday night.
Now, when you go to Buffalo, do you still get boneless wings, or do you worry that you might get in trouble there?
It is always boneless wings. It is always. It doesn't matter. Just like I feel like we started 3 minutes in with violence. Now we're gonna finish with 2 more minutes of violence, but it is always boneless wings. I know the rest of the boys with the Fantasy Alarm will continue to say that they are nuggets. They are not. They are different, and I will die on that hill. Simple.
I do love boneless wings, but if you're gonna throw a bowl of flats at me,
that's fine too.
A different story.
But stay all the way to the end of your hockey games because it's unacceptable. Boneless chicken wings are chicken wings.
And there you have it, folks. That's what we're going to take away from episode 10 of Bettor Hockey Now. After all that, center talk and draft and news, that's the takeaway here for the 10th edition of Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. But I think that does it for this edition. We've gone long enough here. I think we're okay. I think we're good to rock here. But we'll be back with you next time. Next week we're going to focus on wings, so not the boneless or bone kind. We're going like Tyler Toffoli's and those players of the world. But for Christopher Merez and Anthony Rivera, I'm Adam Bernard. We'll be back with you real soon here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Bettor Hockey Now is on the Bettor Sports Network.